So, happy Pride.
Yes, happy Pride. I mean, it's an interesting one this year because I was thinking about this before we came on, but it is. I would say that it's the most important Pride I've ever known in this country. Given the circumstances that we're under at the moment, it is the most important Pride. It's basically become what it used to be and what it essentially was, which is a protest.
Yeah.
You know, it's a way of saying we're here and we're not going anywhere, and get used to it. You know, get used to it. I mean, people who are outside of the UK may not understand just how different it's become here. Over the last, I would say, like since 2000. I mean, it's been happening for a while, but since really the thing that really escalated it was Brexit. Since 2016.
No, actually, you can pinpoint it a lot further than that. The whole thing has gone very, very tits up. Even earlier, so things have been like sort of declining a little bit here, there. You know, pull a little thread to see what happens. When the Scottish tried doing the gender recognition bill, 2-3 years ago, and the Conservative government squashed it. And conveniently, at the same time that happened, all the right-wing rags like the Sun and the Mail and fucking whoever started running this story about this prisoner rapist who suddenly identified as female, and the question was, do we put him in a female prison? Do we put them in a male prison? And the whole subject about gender ideology, and that started to bubble under the surface, and then suddenly you got the whole argument of I don't want perverts in my toilet, and that fucking bullshit all stems from the Scottish actually trying to do something progressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because, like, I can't believe people can't see what's happening. I don't believe people can't understand that, especially people our age, we're old enough to know that this is how the right wing react, right? This is what they do, because they don't have any genuine ideology of their own. They don't have any solutions to anything, because that's not part of what they actually want. What the right in this country want, what they always want, which is status quo, where the poor
division,
rich, division. That's it. They don't have any plans or ideas for improving things for the majority, because that's not what they're about, no matter what they proclaim when elections are coming up.
Well,
and what they always do is sow division. They scapegoat, and at the moment, because now they've fucking got nothing. They are so done, it's unbelievable. So what is it?
Do you know what?
What is it?
Everybody is assuming that the Tories are done. Right, and now I say assuming because the worst thing you can do is assume, and the worst thing you can be, especially in politics, is arrogant. Right now, and sort of cocky and self-assured. Now, you'd be too young to remember this, and I only vaguely remember it. Thank God for the miracle of videotape. Right. When Neil Kinnock was the leader of the opposition, and it was the general election 1980 fucking God knows what, right? And there was a Labour conference, Labour rally sort of thing, I think the night or 2 nights before the general election. And a guy stood up on stage and he addressed the audience and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Neil Kinnock." And he fucking waddled up to the stage like some fucking balding toucan and started shouting, "We're all right." And all it basically, me and Ross used to take the piss out of this for years. It was like basically saying, you got up on stage and you shouted out to a mass audience, "We're average. We're all right. Yeah, we're not brilliant. We're not great, but we're not bad. We're all right." And for some reason, that stuck in the throats of a lot of the voting public, and that year Thatcher won by a fucking landslide. It's like, no, if you think about it, you're right. The right wing have no plans. They have no ideas. They have nothing fresh. They recycle the same rhetoric and the same fucking bullshit, just under a slightly different banner.
Yeah,
we've been if you consider a generation to be, I generally place a generation as once you're legally enough to bone, right? And legally old enough to be parents. We have been under Tory rule for just shy of a generation.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, if you count, like, New Labour were right wing, they were just to the right of centre. So really,
centre, yeah.
If you think about it, we our whole lives have had nothing but right wing ideology in government. Yeah. That's it. That's all we know. That's all we know. Unlike our parents' generation, who actually did have like some genuine socialist governments at one time, we didn't. We never have. We've never known it, except in the abstract.
We almost did. Almost, and I've got a wonderful little theory. Before Tony Blair became the leader of Labour, because at that stage it was still Labour.
Yeah.
John Smith was the leader of the Labour Party, and John Smith died very, very suddenly of a heart attack back in 1994 or 5 or something like that. And it was a big shock and a big shame. If John Smith had won the 97 election, we wouldn't have had a centre just off to the right party. We'd have had a left socialist party, which is what Corbyn tried bringing back. But by that stage, the political table is so tainted and poisoned.
Yeah.
Oh, he's unelectable. He's unelectable, despite the fact that he won 2 leadership contests in the space of 12 months, and the second one was a fucking larger majority than the first. But no, the guy's unelectable.
Yeah,
bullshit.
And it's utter bullshit. And what I love about that was the notion of tarring Corbyn as some sort of socialist extremist. He was a soft socialist. That's all he was. If you want to see hard socialists, then you want to see what I and my lot would do if we ever got any power, because that would be hard fucking socialist. I can tell you.
I mean, you and me used to have many discussions in the yellow lounge of my mother's place whilst inebriated, and we often said between the two of us, our new world order would take some getting used to.
It absolutely fucking would. I can tell you. You don't want me anywhere near any kind of power, because so much for the tolerant left. Yeah, so much for the tolerant left. At this point, tolerance. We're fucked. Yeah, at this point, it's over. We have had so much right-wing ideology in this country. Every single. This is what fucking gets me as well. They are the biggest pussies and pansies imaginable. The right, They have had
challenge them to a real fight, and
nothing but dominance. They've had nothing but dominance in every walk of fucking life, but they can't handle not having just one tiny little ounce of criticism, one tiny little thing. It's why they demonize universities. It's why they demonize students and lecturers and teachers and whatnot, because people who are fucking educated, people who read, generally are not right wing. They're generally not right-wing. And if that's where education leads you, doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that fucking tell you something? They will have you believe that it's because because this is the way they operate. This is the way they do things. It's all about dominance for them. They want to impose all and sundry. They want absolute carte blanche to say what they want, do what they want, fuck everyone else. That's the way they operate. But that's not why educated people are generally more left-wing. The reason educated people are generally more left-wing is because they're exposed to more ideas. It's because it's inculcated into them. It's inculcated into us. If you read, if you exercise your imagination, if you educate yourself, it becomes evident. It becomes evident that right-wing ideology is bullshit. It just becomes self-evident.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is as well that what a lot of I don't like using the term left or leftists or anything like that, because it kind of I mean, the whole left-right thing is fucking ridiculous anyway. But one of the things I think is empathy as well. People who lean to the right or have always been sort of in that sort of group struggle to have empathy for other people, whereas socialist people, the whole fucking thing is based on empathy, and
absolutely.
help and sort of progression and sort of new ideas and like sort of
Mhm.
I'm no better than the next person. The next person's fallen over. Let me help that person up instead of pissing on them.
The thing is, at this point, it's not even ideological. At this point in this country, it's not even ideological. Nobody can come to the table and tell you that right-wing ideas work, or that they're good for they're positive for the society and for culture. All you have to do is step out your fucking front door in this country, and you can see the physical byproducts of right-wing ideology. You can see the corrosion and the decay. You can see the potholed roads. You can see the empty houses. You can see the food banks. You can see the hospitals and the clinics that are closing down. You can see the trains that don't fucking run anymore. You know,
on the subject of food banks, right? Did you see there's a clip floating around somewhere of two fucking moron cunts, right? Who are both claiming universal credit. They haven't both got pots to piss in, and they were stopped by a reporter on the way to a food bank, right? And they turned around and said, "We'll be absolutely gutted if the Tories don't get in because they've done more to help us than anyone."
Yeah,
and they sat there and they said it with that hint of fucking irony. And the woman turned around and said, "It'll break my heart if they don't get in." And I thought to myself, do you know what? You are beyond help. You're exactly the sort of person who the right depend upon.
Yes, the stupidity, right? The lack of awareness. I mean, I have a real problem with this country because this culture, England in particular, there's a very particular part of England where it's like living amongst aliens. It's like living. Most people politically in this country are effectively illiterate, right? They're effectively illiterate. They read only the sources that they've read since they were like kids or that their parents read. They read the fucking Daily Mail or the Sun, and they think this is news. They think this is news, and they don't read any further. They don't read any further. They don't look at the sources. They don't look to see if, I mean, in the fucking Mail and the Sun, half the time the stories are literally just made up on the newsroom floor. They're literally made up on the newsroom floor. And policy is then made on the basis of those stories. Brexit was that. Those rags have been drip feeding utter bullshit about the EU into this culture for decades. Absolute decades. And it's been admitted. If you read further, there are reporters and journalists for the Mail and the Sun who've long since retired or died, who have memoirs and given interviews where they said, "Oh yeah, if we had a slow news day, we had nothing to report on, then all we would do is make up something about the EU, or make up something about immigrants, or make up something about refugees, or make up something about some policy that was going to be in schools or whatever." And we knew.
But the only thing I can say is that it must have been a slow news day for the last fucking 40 odd years, because that's all they report.
That's all they've ever done, right?
If you, where was I going with this? The people who the Tory party are relying on is these two fucking dimwit cunts for a start, right? And the sort of people, this is a great example, those who still live in mining towns who vote Tory.
Yeah. I live in one. I mean, we have turned.
I thought Tamworth was a market town.
It is. It's an ex-mining town.
Oh,
we've got,
okay.
Yeah. It's an ex. My grandfather was a miner. You know, so you can imagine what the rhetoric was like in our house. It was always very anti-Tory. But no, it's an ex-mining town, and for the past 2 decades, it's voted Tory. That changed very recently after Christopher Pincher. It took.
I was going to say, was it Chris Pincher who was your one?
It took the presiding Tory MP to be outed as a sex pest, mind you.
And the Prime Minister to lose his job because of him.
Because of that, but that's what did it. We now have it's a Labour majority now, actually, because there were council elections very recently, so it is a Labour majority for the first time in decades. It's actually, and I'm telling you, if you live in a town or a setting in the UK that's had a Tory council for the last 20, 30 years, and then you go to somewhere like, for example, Sheffield, which has had a Labour council for the last 20, 30 years, it's like visiting a different country. It's like a different world. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no time for Labour as it currently stands. No time whatsoever. Labour has moved so far to the right. It has basically betrayed its everything that it was founded to represent, every demographic, that I can't vote for them anymore. Fuck them.
Yeah. Now, Mum's going to listen to this at some point, but I just never got around to cancelling my membership. So I still pay like sort of £1.25 a month or something. Anyway, but
I was when Corbyn was in. I was.
Yeah. But right, this is what fucking annoys me. Right, he's fucking Corbyn unelectable. Right, the membership upsurge. Right, new members under his leadership.
Yeah,
Labour became the largest fucking political party in Europe.
Yeah.
Just due to its bodies of members, and yes, they have abandoned many of the principles that the Labour Party, the real Labour Party, was founded on. And the mail keep running stories like, oh, if you're going to be handing the keys to like sort of unions if Labour get in, and I think to myself, do you know what? If that was honestly what would happen, great. Because the leader of the RMT now, Bob Crow, I think is it Bob Crow? No, I think it might be Bob Crow. No, he's the one that died. I think
it's yes. He's fantastic. Yes. I mean, he really is.
Bob Crow was a wanker, right? Who would just make the RMT strike every time he fucking stubbed his toe. But this new guy actually understands the delicacies and the politics that being at the head of a union involved, and he wipes the fucking floor with them every single time. Now,
every single time. His I remember watching. There was an interview. Even like his younger subordinates, like his lieutenants, are fantastic. There was his second in command was on. He was on Newsnight several years ago when the train strikes first started, and he so plain speaking, it was wonderful. BBC, they always fucking do this in the name of balance. Brought on to debate with him a lord, fucking elderly lord from the House of Lords.
Was this question time by any chance?
Yeah, no, it was like a Newsnight interview or something.
Oh, right, okay.
And this young guy, he was like, you know what? I am not having this conversation. I am not going to debate the ethics and politics of work with a man who doesn't know the business end of a shovel. And it's like, yes. Yeah. Yes. Why don't more people say that? This is the other thing that happens in this country. The right are so used to having dominance in everything, to having their say in every area, whether they're qualified to or not, whether they have anything to say or not. They think they have the right to say whatever the fuck they like, wherever they like. And that's what they want. They want access to every forum. They want to be invited carte blanche to every table, every debate, every discussion. And if they're not, then they proclaim that it's censorship. Then they proclaim that they're being suppressed. And it's not that. It's just that there are minimum standards for debate, motherfuckers, and you don't meet it.
Don't meet any of them. Okay, here's an interesting one. There's one policy I think it could probably do with a little bit of reworking, but one thing that I think Labour have introduced, the Tories will bring back national service. I'll come on to that one in a minute, right? That's the best they could come up with. Labour, as a counterbalance point to that, went, okay, we're going to introduce the voting age to 16. And they've gone, oh, that's irresponsible. You know, you can't give the vote to people at 16. I thought to myself, well, hang on a minute. You can give them a gun and fucking put them in the army at 16.
Absolutely.
You can fucking, they can have sex, they can get married, they can do blah, blah, blah.
They work, they can, they are parts of society.
But they can go and get a job, but they can't be told what, they don't get a say in what their fucking taxes are spent on. You have no laugh.
By the way, by that logic then, if it's about competence, if that's what we're talking about, then voting should be taken away from elderly people, shouldn't it?
Well, I think
if we're being consistent, I mean, I don't believe this. I want to make this plain. I don't believe this. But if we're being consistent, then if 16-year-olds aren't cogent and competent enough to vote, then neither are 80-year-olds.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. You can't have it both ways, you know? You can't have it both ways. The reason they don't want 16-year-olds to vote is because young people tend to vote left-wing. They tend to vote, they tend to vote for those people and parties that will actually represent them to a certain degree. I mean, that is an option in this country at the moment because we don't have that.
Well, no, but the older you get, I always find it funny. The older you get, the technically the more right wing you become. I mean, Jen's mother, bless her, lovely lady, but there have been times we've been over Jen's mum's house and we've had to excuse ourselves because she's in the kitchen prepping dinner or whatever, watching GB News, and we went, I can't be around that. Can't be around that. And my father, bless him, you know, and I can say this because he knows exactly what I think of him. Lovely guy, wouldn't hurt a fly, bit of a dickhead, right?
It's generational. It is generational.
Votes Tory, and I tried having a conversation with him. I said, seriously, you vote Conservative, and he didn't get angry with me, but he got a little bit up to me. He went, "Oh, come on, we don't have to talk about this." I went, at some stage, I really do think we have to. I said, because you've set your own expectations so unbelievably low there.
Yeah,
you did.
And also, I mean, you have to have the conversation because they're voting against you. If they're voting Tory, if they're voting right wing, they're voting against you and us and what's good for their children and their grandchildren and every generation below them. Yeah. It's an act of hostility. That's the way I take it. I'm really sorry. It's an act of hostility against us at this point.
Weirdly enough, I mean, with my, I kind of feel like I pick on my dad a little bit, which is wrong. But whenever he posts or shares a meme which is slightly transphobic or something like that, he might think it's like a bit of a laugh, sort of blah blah, no harm done, blah blah blah. But there have been more than one occasions where I've contacted him privately and said, "Dad, nah, mate, you take that one down." Blah blah. A bit, you know, the irony isn't lost on me. You're saying, making these jokes about trans people when you ran a really high-profile gay pub in Southend, and a lot of your a lot of your close friends and a lot of the regular customers were trans or XYZ, blah blah blah. You of all people, I don't care if you're fucking right-wing Tory voting cunt. You of all people should know better. I'm not the only one. Mum's done it to him. Jen's taken him on one side occasion, gone Mick. But I love my dad, but sometimes he doesn't think, and I think that's the problem when it comes to people who vote Conservative. They either don't think, or they have an aneurysm in the polling booth, or they've got very, very short selective fucking memories. Because with all good conscience, when Labour was in power between 97 and I think 2009, there was anywhere between about 14 and 21 food banks in the UK. Since the Conservatives have taken over, that figure is now 20, 30, 35,000 food banks, or possibly more.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's just a drop in the ocean compared to everything else. Small. It's just one example of everything else that they've done in those years. And
people say, like, fucking that haunted fucking toilet roll, Jacob Rees-Mogg. It turns around and says, food banks, I think they're a good thing. I think they're uplifting. And I think to myself, you are so incapable of fucking reading a room. It's hilarious. On the slight technicality, I would say food banks are a good thing because they provide food to people who desperately need it. On a slight technicality, the face fact of the value is they are a residual after effect. They are a byproduct of exactly what's gone fucking wrong in this country, because a country that is supposed to be so bountiful and like sort of one of the fucking fifth highest grossing nation in the world or whatever, blah, blah, should not have a population where some of them are working full time, 40 hours a week, still need to go to a food bank and still need to fucking claim universal credit.
Yeah, it's a symptom of disease. It is not a good thing. It is a symptom of disease. It's a symptom of a dying culture. That's what it is.
In the sense of what they're able to provide for people. But in terms of what they actually represent, they're fucking cancer.
Absolutely. Now, and you have to extrapolate to the end. Ultimately, it's an escalating disease. That's what it is. It's a symptom of where we're moving, which is so far into right. I mean, we are descending into fascism. That's where we're descending.
Blindly, and this is what makes me laugh. It's like we had the 80th anniversary commemoration for the D-Day landings and sort of blah blah blah, and watching all these fucking Tory fucking vultures standing there at the parade, and I thought to myself, none of you are even remotely grasping the irony of you even fucking being within 100 yards of that fucking place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, And the thing is, so much. I mean, the thing is, it's all posturing. It's all opportunism.
Oh, it
That's
means
what
fuck
gets
all.
me about. It's all performative, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the big. That's one of the really big issues we have, not only with politics, but with almost every aspect of culture in the UK, which is that it's all fucking performative. It's all aesthetics. It's people
Do
who
you know
have
what?
vacuums at their heart, who don't
Do you know-
really believe or feel anything.
It's like a
Anything.
charade, as you
They
say.
have-
It's all performative.
It's all
Do you know
performative.
what?
And you know what the thing is? You know what the thing is? It kills people. This as well. They don't realize. Most people don't realize that their lives are performative. They don't realize that they're being enjoined by these narratives in culture to live in a particular way, to do this, to do that, to function like this. And then they reach like the age, late 50s maybe, and it hits them. I'm unhappy. I've done everything that I was told to do. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do, but I'm unhappy. Why am I unhappy? Why am I unhappy? You're unhappy because you've got nothing real.
Yeah.
You're unhappy because it's all performative. You're unhappy because
you put yourself in 60 grand's worth of debt that you're never going to be able to pay off for your student loans. It's never going
to fulfill you. You're
never going to be able to own your own home.
Even that's performative. Even that is nonsense. Even that is absolute nonsense. It's a lie. You never own your own home. It's always bullshit. It's always bullshit. Never own your own home.
The opportunity, as it were, to even be in a position where you could pretend
that you own your own home. You don't. All it takes is a few missed council tax bills, or you getting really infirm, and you are fucked. It's always a lie. Almost everything in this culture is constructed of these shams, of these lies. Oh, do this and you'll be fulfilled. And not only that, I mean, age will take it away from you. Age will take it away from you. You will get to a point where you can't sustain that home or that car, and then you're fucked.
Before that, you know, a lot of people, I think, get old before their time because from a soul perspective, from like a inner person perspective, there's only so much being browbeaten you can take before you just crumble, before you just stop. Now, here's the thing with regards to like the being on the property ladder thing. It's like you can't have it both ways. It's like a double-edged sword. So according to the bank, I earn enough to pay rent, i.e. someone else's mortgage, but I don't earn enough to make a mortgage payment. In fact, if we had a mortgage, me and Jen would probably be better off per month because we're both not spending £750 out of our wages for one monthly rent payment.
Absolutely.
If the rent was 500 quid, that's 250 quid each. Fucking brilliant. So that makes no sense. We're going to go back to something we spoke about earlier, where you were talking about like sort of progression and what was it? Tolerance.
I hate that fucking word. I hate that. Just railroad this for a moment. Don't give a fuck about your tolerance. I'm not here for you to tolerate. You know, as a gay guy, I hate that word tolerance. Not in your fucking lawn, mate. Not on your fucking lawn. This is one of my big things. You know, even allies use this word. Even allies will talk about tolerance, and it's like, not here to be tolerated. And I'm not invading your space. I'm not in your back garden. This is the thing. It's the assumption of dominance. The people who proclaim that we have to tolerate like gay people or whatever, or trans people, none of us are invaders. None of us are actually invading your lawn. It belongs to all of us. It's not your sandpit. We're not intruders in it. So fuck your tolerance, okay?
Yeah, but
you don't have the right to grant us tolerance, all right? In the first place.
This conversation we're having has taken a bit of a strange turn because last year, I can't believe it's been a year already. I sat down, I discussed with you about how the LGBTQ community is represented in the horror genre, and I think that conversation even took a bit of a spiteful turn at some point where we eventually tried banging the world to rights to like.
I've no doubt it did, but you know. The thing is, it's going to happen.
Well, yeah, because the conversation needs to be had.
not only that, but like, how spiteful is this? It's a fucking podcast. It's not harming anyone, okay? The reason they will call us extreme. They will call us extreme. They are fucking literally calling for our extermination. Have you seen how bad the crime statistics are in this country since 2016 with regards to homophobic assaults and queerphobic assaults and murders, even? The murders of trans people and trans kids? It's like, no.
It's gone up hundreds of percent,
hundreds of percent.
Anywhere between about, was it 300 or 350, 800%?
We're being spiteful to you, are we? Oh, diddums, are we being spiteful? We're being mean to you on the internet. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Well, you see, the thing is, you can say anything on the internet, can't you?
But I say it to their faces now.
Well, yeah.
My tolerance, particularly since Brexit, has gone.
Well, I think
gone.
I think
I don't allow for this bullshit anymore. I don't allow for this bullshit. And if you're going to assume that I share your perspectives, if you're going to be like casually racist or casually transphobic, be fucking prepared. Be fucking prepared.
Well, I think that's the problem, isn't it? Because people won't admit that Brexit was sold to them on a lie. But one thing that Brexit did do was seem to give these people a soapbox or like a platform which to communicate their closeted, for the most part, unless you were drinking Wetherspoons, sort of their closeted thoughts and musings. But yeah, so
call it what it is. They love to say, "Oh, we call a spade a spade." Oh, use simple language. Yeah, fucking bigots. They don't like that word, do they? Oh, well, you can't say that. No, we've got sincere concerns about immigration. We've got sincere concerns about trans people. Fuck you.
Well, yeah,
no, you don't.
Imagine you could deconstruct. I mean, the argument's the same as religion. Like, you can deconstruct the argument very, very easily, and it's no sport at all. But I mean, the biggest argument. Oh yeah, well, I'm voting to leave the EU to stop all the brown people coming in.
That's what it was.
Well, you could take a step back and unpack what you just said there, or I'm just going to move on to somebody who's not a dribbling fucking idiot. Now.
A moron, basically. Yeah. But also, I mean, what I love about that is anyone with even half an ounce of nous or awareness of how these things work could have told them that even if that was your basis, fucked up and racist and bigoted as it is, you were going to fail anyway because all the mechanisms are gone now. All of that goodwill between the European countries and us has gone. So they're not going to be given us all of the leeway and the breaks that they were before. It's the funniest fucking thing to watch these fuckers try and tie themselves in knots trying to justify how this thing was not just a colossal, insane self-own.
What a lot of people don't realise is it was like sort of all these hedge fund fucking people like Rishi Sunak was before he got into politics, and that betting against the fucking pound.
That's right, betting against the pound. All these people like your Nigel fucking Farages, Nigel fucking Toad of Toad Hall, Batrachian wanker, Putin's hand puppet over there. With their
an image.
with their nationalistic bullshit, even if you do sincerely believe in this nationalistic nonsense, which, by the way, I think you're an imbecile if you do. But even if you do, you believe these idiots, you believe these people, then there's something wrong with you. It's evident that they don't believe as they say they believe. All you have to do, it takes the smallest amount of research. Look at where Nigel Farage's money comes from. Go and look at where his business interests are. They're not in the UK. Doesn't come from the UK. I can tell you that.
No, but I bless him. I do find it quite funny how he's harping on about immigration, so blah blah blah. And like, well, one, you married a German woman, which, can I just say officially, well done, love, you're very brave. First of all, you married a German woman. Second of all, as soon as the Brexit result came in, you applied for and obtained French citizenship and passports.
So that's because these fuckers, then they are not. I mean, the worst thing about them is on that level, they're not idiots. They are actually really sinister and really cunning and really clever in that regard. But all of them know that this is the sinking ship now. The minute Brexit hit, it's a sinking ship. I'm half convinced it's why like the Labour upper echelons are so fucking awful at the moment. It's almost like nobody wants the poison chalice of post-Brexit Britain. They all know. I mean, the political classes.
You can't blame them. You can't blame them.
You can't fix it.
I mean,
what's fix it?
I mean, what's there to really? What can you build out of just flour and water? Glue.
Yeah, right. Out of smouldering ruins.
Yeah.
Out of like the complete ruins that neoliberalism, Thatcherism has led us to. What can you build out of this neoliberal wasteland, right?
Do you remember the film Threads?
Of course I do. Of course I do.
Do you remember that? I think it's pretty much the last scene in the film where all the fucking people are trying to plow the land that's fucking dead. And that, and all the earth is dead, but they're trying to fucking plough the land to maybe grow a bean or something, and one of them just fucking kills over and dies.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I was thinking about that scene the other day, and I thought to myself, you could apply that one scene literally to any part of the political landscape in this country right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's perfect.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think that I'm totally cynical. I'm not. I actually think there is a vision.
Well, no, fuck it. No, I'm not. I'm not cynical. People often say to me, I've said to me for years, "Oh, you're very cynical," and I think, do you know what? No, fuck it. I'm not cynical. I'm a realist. There's a difference between cynicism, right, and actually objectively looking at the way things are and going, "Well, this is a bit bollocks."
I just happen to believe there are better ways of doing things. There are evidently better ways of doing things. There are better systems and better assumptions of politics that operate out there. If we can just get people off their asses, if we can just get people organized. I mean, and it's happening anyway. It's going to happen anyway because the current systems are so gummed up. They're so corroded. They're going to just collapse on themselves eventually.
It needs to start with what Corbyn was trying to sort of like demonstrate, and which is why I think a lot of them got it up their arse about it. It needs to start with empathy. You can't chuck a whole bunch of fucking money at a project, like sort of, we're going to build fucking 35 new hospitals. Okay, what's the point of those hospitals? The hospitals are to fucking help people. Okay, so in order to build those hospitals and start it, the people in them need to have empathy for the people going in. That's the problem with politics. It's very much blah 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 X Y Z. It's very clinical. There's no human, especially not with this fucking lot. There's no human aspect to it. And that's I'm going to bring this round to the main subject, and that's one of the reasons why Pride is so important, because it demonstrates the importance of empathy towards others and the importance of people being there for other people.
Well, of community, yeah, it represents the need to be organised and the need to be together. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to demonize like online spaces too much, because they have been in recent years. They've been absolutely essential for organizing, and particularly for the trans community, because the trans community is even smaller than the gay community, and even more disparate. So it's been an absolute, for many trans people, the internet has been a lifeline,
Yeah, if you believe the hype, they are one of the smaller communities, but apparently one of the most lethal.
I know, right? Which the right can't have it both ways, right? The enemies of transphobes, TERFs, all those idiots, the GT cult, they can't have it both ways. They can't have it that this is like, as Joanne likes to say, the most dangerous threat to women in my lifetime. Yeah, Joanne. So, like, abortion is now effectively illegal in most of the US, and it's happening here too. So access to essential female medical practices are being taken away, but it's trans people that are the problems. Fuck off.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's stupid, if she's as stupid as she comes across, or if she's just insincere. I don't know.
I think she's very insincere. I mean, after all, to have such a venomous stance on trans people and yet have the fucking audacity to ghostwrite under a male pseudonym. I know. I won't let that go. She's a cunt. No? Because especially to pick the name Robert Galbraith, who was fucking, wasn't he?
He was a basically he was a eugenicist who is responsible. You know conversion therapy.
Yeah,
He's
right.
the creator of that, basically.
Right,
So
okay. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about fucking good old I'm sorry. That's not even subtle.
It's not, is it? You know, when I first heard that, I was like, "That's not true. That's something
exactly.
that's like
I thought, no, surely
that's exaggerated. That's
surely
distorted."
Not.
It's totally true.
And,
it's totally true,
you know,
and that is one of the key things that made me look at her and go, "You know what? It's not that you've gotten bad information somewhere. It's not that you're damaged or something like that. You're just a bad person.
yeah, I mean,
you are just a bad person." You don't, and also, I mean, I know they're going to turn up in the comments. Oh, fighting for women's rights. Oh, okay. So the Roe versus Wade is repealed by a Supreme Court primarily composed of conservative men, old men, and she's not a bleat, nothing. And the knock-on effects of this, by the way, are so profound. It's not just like literal abortions that are now illegal in many states. It's also a lot of those treatments that are essential and specific to women that are related to abortion. So, for example, there are certain drugs that are used in certain forms of abortion, but which are also used to treat other things that women have.
Yeah, they can't get
which now doctors in the US are reluctant to prescribe because they could potentially be taken to court for it.
Yeah,
but no. That's next to trans people. That's nothing, right? According to this.
Well, I heard rumblings that the Republicans are also going after contraception next.
Of course they are.
And it occurred to me, it's trans people that problem. It occurred to me that somebody discovering their true self and going through years of consultations, HRT, sort of the blah, 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 and then the final stage. Some of them don't even go to the final stage. Some of them are just happy as they are. But then to go to the final stage, which is ultimately the final stage, gender reassignment surgery, and yet all that for just one person results in the Women's Institute chapter in Dorset being wiped out.
Right. This is what gets me. It's the fact that when you just scratch the surface of the gender critical cult, the TERFs, people like Joanne Rowling, what they actually are is misogynist conservatives. There are now situations where cisgender women who are not trans, who were born completely female, are being attacked, they're being targeted, they're being harassed, and do you know why? Because they don't physically live up to certain patriarchal prescriptions of what female is, of what femininity
birth certificates and sort of shit like that.
It's also fundamentally racist as well, because of course it's based on European traditions of what femininity is. Of course it fucking is. It's like it's the most self-owning thing I've ever seen. Also, I mean, no matter which way you slice it, these people who proclaim to be feminists, okay, what feminists have they read? What feminists has J.K. Rowling read? That's what I want to know. Does she know anything about first wave feminism? Does she know anything about the parameters and the assumptions that define first wave feminism from, say, third wave feminism, or when they occurred? What cultural circumstances made them occur? What drove them? What were the internal conflicts of those movements? Because there were lots of internal conflicts of those movements. Who were the key figures, Joanne? Who were the key writers? Who were the poets? Who were the women who were doing this? You don't know, do you? You've never read Helen Sisu. You don't know The Raft of the Medusa. You don't know this, and you call yourself a feminist. I think
the dangerous aspect to in this one particular scenario is you do appear to be asking a lot of questions there, George. And if the writers taught us anything, it's that it's not really that kind of forum. It's not really that kind of setup to be asking questions.
And not only that, I mean, really, ultimately, when you boil it down, it's all justification because of this particular bigotry. She just wants to mask. It's what they always do. We know this in the gay community. We know this because it happens to us. it's always, oh, we have sincere concerns about the sanctity of marriage, about children, about this, about that. It's always a mask. They always love to mask and divert their innate bigotry behind a moral perspective. And this one, they've managed to do it by calling themselves feminist. Now, have you seen the people that Joanne in particular is cozying up to of late? People like Matt Walsh. Now, Matt Walsh is a self-defined misogynist patriarch who believes that women should be sex slaves and broodmares.
Yeah, is he the one that looks like an Amazon cardboard box? Is he the one with the square head?
Pretty much, yeah.
And who else is on the fringe? It's Posey Parker.
Posey Parker, another fascist.
Yeah, and then of course our favourite,
Glinner.
Yes. Now ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary, we had a discussion of following one of our videos, and it was after the recording had stopped. We were having a chat about Glinner, and I'm going to say it here, because I think it deserves to be said, and it's maybe something that hasn't been necessarily put out there in the wider world. I personally think Glenner's main problem with the trans community is he can't reconcile with himself the fact that he's sitting there night after night ripping the head off it to trans porn.
It is the kind of thing. Glenner is a special case because he is nuts.
Yeah,
he's not like Joanne, who's just unpleasant. You know, there's something wrong with him. The way he presents. You know, when you look at his internet activity, he's on Twitter all the fucking time. And when I say all the time, I mean like that archetype of the basement dwelling crazy who has nothing else.
It doesn't help that he looks like one as well, does it? I mean, fucking hell.
Right.
I could be entirely wrong, but you do you remember it's come up quite a lot recently, every accusation is a confession.
Yes.
Right? I'm sorry, but if he was to turn around tomorrow and say, and I use this as one of the intros for Dave on 7 Days to Die. I'd have more respect for him if he turned around tomorrow and just turned around and said, actually, what I really want is to suck a great big fat trans dick. I go, do you know what? Fair enough, mate.
Yeah, fair enough.
But don't make anyone else's life a fucking misery.
Yeah, I would love to get a hold of his hard drive and his phone. I would love to get a hold of it. I'm sure there's some weird stuff on there.
Every accusation is a confession, and when you're protesting that much,
it is a case of the Emperor's New Clothes, isn't it? It is a case of the Emperor's New Clothes. You're like, well, why this obsession?
Yeah, why this obsession?
About this? And also, don't give me this bullshit that it's about protecting women. He was originally banned from Twitter for harassing perfectly cisgender women, you know, and pretending to be other people. You know, the man is a lunatic, but this is the kind of harassing lunatic that this movement has hitched its cart to, you know? It's amazing. It's amazing that they can come at you and say, oh, no, we're protecting women, we're feminists, but, oh, by the way, this idiot here who harassed women up and down, you know, cis women, trans women, he
went after a lady named... he's been banned more than once. I think, even if it was like 25, he went after what's her name? A trans lady named Katie Montgomery. She became an obsession of his for a while.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen him when he's interviewed? I mean, the weirdest thing is that they give. I mean, he is demonstrative of how degraded our discourses have become, because this man gets platforms on certain mainstream news programs, and it's always, you can see the interviewers. Sort of like you can see them looking off and waiting for their producers to whisper into their ear, cut him off.
But then again, he's getting the platforms the same way Farage is getting the fucking platforms to spout shit. He's not. Farage isn't head of a political party. He's part of a limited company. Reform UK is a limited company, right? He's never won a seat. He's fucking. You know, he's never been in that level of power, and yet he's given the platforms because people seem to regard him as like an authority on like sort of what he's talking about. The guy couldn't fucking, you know, tie his own shoelaces in the back of a cab.
You look into his background, he's got no expertise at all. He's a born toff. Everything he's touched, he's been given. And he's been given. He's inherited from other people. It's because he was born into that position of privilege, and therefore it's like Johnson, and all the other fucking right wings and Tories and whatnot.
Born into privilege. It's just to show that privilege couldn't afford some cosmetic surgery to give the cunt a chin, really, isn't it?
It's not. Also, it's not the greatest advertisement for private education, is it? Really? Let's be honest.
But it's a great advertisement for inbreeding.
Yeah. But it's the most amazing thing to me. It's the most amazing thing. Our discourses in this country are poisoned to the nth degree, and it's primarily because of this notion of balance that platforms like the BBC promote, where when they're talking about trans issues, for example, they say, oh, we need to bring a balanced perspective. So we're going to have this expert, this person, this doctor, this psychologist who's been working with trans people and has made it their specialization over X number of decades. And to balance that out, we're going to get this raving ignoramus from Twitter who has no qualifications whatsoever.
Who can barely talk.
Who can barely string two sentences together. And also, by the way, in this particular area, they never interview any trans people. And it's
funny that, isn't it?
Well, if you're going to... I mean, I apologize, by the way, to every trans and non-binary person listening to this, because I'm sure, as I do as a gay man, I get fucking sick of these idiots talking about our lives as though they have any right to, as though they have any basis or platform to. And I bet for the trans community, it's 1,000,000 times worse because it's everywhere. It's fucking everywhere. It's so sinister.
It's hell for them right now. But it's comparable to what the gay community had to endure in the 80s.
It's true. It's true. I have no doubt.
It's exactly the same packaged sound bites, the same
word for word, the same arguments.
Exactly the same, just with a different tagline.
That's right. You just take out gay and you put in trans, and it is the same language. It's the same distortions. It's the same exaggerations. It's the same outright fucking lies and ignorance.
Now,
go on. No, go on.
One of the reasons I wanted to, when you were asking for people to like sort of join you on these for this month, and one of the reasons I jumped at this, I was like, oh, I want to try and marry like sort of subjects up together, like sort of culture and like sort of media and how they benefit or not so much like sort of certain marginalised subgroups and that, and it was getting really, really difficult to try and think of like a sort of a topic. Because in terms of like sort of media and that, I kept coming back to He-Man. And I thought to myself, do you know what? We are not going to string out a 1 to 2 hour conversation on the intricacies of Ram Man and Fisto.
No, definitely not. I mean, the funny thing about He-Man is the same thing that you get in a lot of 1980s cartoons, which is they are unintentionally queer. They're unintentionally...
Massively homoerotic. In fact,
it's really amazing. She-Ra's even worse, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The 1980s She-Ra is hilarious. I mean, you've got that character Bo, who is like the image of a gay porn star. The image of a 1980s gay porn star.
Now,
it's the most incredible thing.
We had a chat about this, I think around about the same time we decided we were going to try and do a series on Alien. So about a decade ago. Most people won't know this, but me and George decided that if we were ever to come into an obscene amount of money, then we should invest a portion of it into a trendy gay nightclub called Eternia.
Yeah, it's got to be called Eternia, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Snake Mountain's too on the nose, right?
Well, no, you leave that for the dark rooms.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, it's like the gayest cartoon I could think of with the gayest name for the realm. And everything like that. I thought we're not going to get a 2 hour conversation out of this. And then it occurred to me, what I'd like to discuss is my own lived experiences in terms of all this.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, Joe, I mean, just for the audience at home, everybody knows how I identify. If you're on this channel and you don't, then fucking what you're doing.
Well, I was going to say it was only until recently, but you kept it very quiet up till then.
Oh yeah, I know. Completely shrinking violet in that regard. It's very subtle. Yeah, it's very
subtle. Yeah.
So what is your identity? How do you identify? What's your jam?
I would say
What's your deal?
bisexual. Bisexual.
Yeah.
But in the sense that, and this is where even my own sexuality confuses me, because I think it would be almost impossible for me to commit to a conventional relationship with a man.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's like, again, even within bisexuality, there is this incredible spectrum, right? So that I know bisexual people who say exactly that, who like, I'm sexually attracted to men and women. I could have like a one-night stand or a hookup with a man, but I'm romantically inclined towards women.
Yeah, that's exactly
the other way round as well, and the other way round, and all variations in between. You know, it's even within the label of bisexuality. It's not in the same way that it's not adequate for describing like the variety that exists within that umbrella.
Yeah, and it took me years to come to that conclusion, mostly because I never really gave two thoughts about it. It didn't really bother me that much. But for me, it's weird because I've never really felt like I belonged. I don't think that's the right word. That I maybe I'll use that term first, but I mean something else. Like I did belong in the LGBT community, but I guess yes, I do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, you absolutely do. It's an interesting thing because a lot of bi people, a lot of ace people, you know, they often don't feel like they belong under that umbrella, but they absolutely do.
Yeah, and I think it stems from the fact
that are we all?
Oh yeah, I mean, and it stems from the fact that the LGBT community has been an intrinsic part of my life from the time I was 6.
Yes, because of course your mum and dad ran the gay club, right?
They ran a pub in Southend called the Cliff.
Yeah, which was really significant, right? It was the site of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was run by a brewery called Taylor Walker at the time, and the pub was like sort of flagging, wasn't doing too well, blah blah blah, and they decided what they were going to do because the clientele within the pub never mixed. So the gay guys would be on one side and the lesbians would be on the other side of the pub.
Really? That's interesting because that doesn't really happen anymore.
No,
it's not segregated anymore. You know.
Yeah. And so I stayed with my grandparents for about 12, 18 months with my sister while my mum and my dad went off to these various pub relief sort of things. They were trained by the brewery how to manage a pub. And the brewery decided that what they were going to do was they were going to kick this place up the arse by having a straight couple run it. So the clientele were a little bit unsure at first, but then pretty much before you knew it, my mum became den mother.
Isn't that what the gay community called her?
Yeah,
it was mother, wasn't it? They called her mother, right?
Yeah,
fucking brilliant. I love that.
And my mum and my dad, back before things started to go hideously wrong, more so my mum, but my mum and my dad ran this pub, and they sort of brought the two main groups of clientele together.
Right.
They'd host like sort of transvestite evenings, like sort of competitions and like sort of things like that. So you had like transvestitism nights. You know, all people, like all sort of walks were like sort of were welcome there for the most part, because one person who was very, very not happy about the Cliff was the sitting Conservative MP Teddy Taylor.
Yeah, would be, wouldn't it?
Because Southend was for many years a Conservative guarantee.
Yeah.
And Teddy Taylor tried on numerous occasions to have the pub shut down because it was immoral. The Sun even ran fucking stories on the place being like basically Sodom and Gomorrah for the 20th century.
Yeah.
And they tried colluding, trying all these smear campaigns and sort of blah, 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 blah. And my mother wiped the fucking floor with both of them.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can well imagine.
And successfully won to keep the pub running, because when my parents took over, the pub suddenly started generating a profit.
Yeah, right.
And that profit,
it's hard to argue with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the clientele fucking stuck up for the landlords. The landlords stuck up for the clientele. The Sun Rag newspaper and Teddy Taylor had nowhere else to turn, and so they eventually dropped it. And I think to myself, that's pretty fucking cool.
It is, isn't it? I mean, but very indicative of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
They will talk about freedom from one side of their face. When these people, when conservatives, when right wingers talk about freedom, what they mean is freedom for them to do as they wish, carte blanche, without any consequences at all. When it comes to everyone else, no.
So we lived in the flat directly above the pub. I'd help my dad sort of bottle up on a Saturday and Sunday, and we'd go down to get all the stuff out, and I'd help him and sort of do that. But when the pub opened, sometimes I'd be allowed to sit there and have a glass of Coke and a packet of crisps. But most of the time, my mum and my dad would say, "All right, Gerard, the pub's open, you need to go upstairs," and I'd go upstairs. But on the rare occasions I was allowed down there and sort of thing, I got to know, 6 years old, I got to know some of the people who drank in there.
Yeah, of course.
And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think there was anything particularly peculiar about this, and because it wasn't, that was my upbringing. Eventually, my parents.
Kids don't.
Yeah,
kids don't.
Because you don't question that kind of stuff because you've got no reason to question it. It's your environment. It's what. And obviously, my mother isn't stupid enough to leave me in an environment where she think I could be potentially harmed or whatever the case may be. So my parents split up when I was about 8.5, and then Dad stayed on the pub, Mum and me moved into a little house, and with my sister. And I'm going to say this out there now. I mean, you could class this as oversharing, but this is important. When I was age 13. I had a little summer job washing up in a hotel, and one particular summer in '93, I was age 13. I was the victim of a serious sexual assault. Am I going to tar the entire LGBT community because of that? Am I fucked? That is not, and this is what people don't understand. They When an incident happens, suddenly it's the whole community's fault.
Yeah, this only happens, by the way, with queer communities. Yeah. It only happens with queer communities. The moment there is any kind of impropriety or assault or anything like that, it's everyone. Yeah, it's all of them. When straight people do it, then it's not. It's the most amazing thing. It's the most amazing. It's an example of the inequalities and the state of privilege that does exist in this culture, even within the subject of something as awful as child abuse. Right?
Yeah.
There is inequality, whether as to what the dynamic of that abuse is. It's the most bizarre thing.
I didn't tell my mum about it. In fact, I didn't tell her about that until I was sort of 22, 23. And she said, I thought at the time that you seemed a little bit withdrawn. I said, no, to be honest, I didn't notice anything different about myself. Because I in my head, I rationalized it. I chalked up to experience and went, well, that was, weird and sort of whatever. I'll just get on with my life. Now, one of the reasons I'm a staunch ally of the LGBTQ, of which I guess I can say I'm a proud member, is because I went to an all-boys Catholic school. And all boys Catholic schools are good for one thing: breeding intolerance. Now, if you're a little bit weird or you don't fit into a particular fucking sort of pre-constructed bubble and that, you're bullied to fuck, especially in an all boys Catholic school. Now, somehow, I think it was because boys that went to my primary school ended up going to this secondary school. Somehow, the bullies in my school when I was about the same time I suffered that assault, the boys in my school found out that I'd lived in a gay pub.
Oh, right, okay.
Which automatically branded me the school gay. I think, looking back at it, they could have come up with something a little bit more fucking original.
And this would have been in the 1990s.
1993. 1993.
Yeah. But still at the state where the worst thing you could be tarred in a British high school was gay, right?
Yeah. Now, none of them knew. I never told my teachers, never told anyone at school, about the incident that occurred. So that, and I considered myself at that time, I guess, a straight boy, because I had posters of fucking Kim Wilde all over my walls. I was infatuated by that woman from the time I was fucking 5. I don't know. I didn't know why. All I knew was I wanted to be in the same room as her. I couldn't tell you why. I just so I took monumental fucking physical beatings at school, to the point where I drew blood on occasions, while they were going, "Oh, you lived in the gay pub, you're gay, blah blah." So I've taken beatings for the fucking LGBT community from a fucking young age. Sort of, I guess, inadvertently fighting the good fight there.
Again, demonstrative of what we all really put up with. I mean, you not even identifying as gay or as bi or as part of the community, just being tangentially, incidentally linked to it is enough to bring violence,
Yeah. Now, the problem with the modern age is, yes, I mean, you still get your physical beating hate crimes of people in the community and things like that, but the bullying is a lot more insidious, because 95% of it takes place behind a fucking keyboard.
Yeah, it's fascinating actually. It's become very different, hasn't it? It's become very, very different. The nature of it. It's also much more ideological now. Back then, it was so assumed. It was so just ingrained within culture that gay was a synonym for bad, for something negative, something filthy, something you never want to be.
Because of
these days, they try to justify it. They try to make it into a matter of ideology, and it's from that you get these awful flapping heads, these cynical grifters, who, to anyone who is not part of the cult, who is not their target, it's evident that that's what they're doing.
Now,
that's what they're doing.
If you're going to round up, if you're going to go for a predominantly hate-based ideology, right? Fair enough, right? You've got your own particular group that you're going to target. Fair enough, and that. If you're going to do that, you need to have a compelling argument, and that's where the first problem arises. Because any of these arguments can be deconstructed in less time than it takes to fucking bring.
Absolutely,
with about as much effort.
I mean, what I love about the ones that operate now, the ones is that they don't market themselves like they used to, where they just had no compunctions. Oh, we just fucking hate queers, No, they're not like that now. They're not like that now. They will hide behind obfuscation and hyperbole and distortion. It's no. It's not. It's intolerant to call us hateful. Actually, no. We're not hateful. We just disagree with
we just want you dead.
Or absolutely. This is a problem I actually have with discourse at the moment. People don't actually extrapolate. They don't interpret the language based on context. They just listen to what these motherfuckers say as though it's sincere.
Again, the reason for that is the ability to fucking construct your entire argument sitting behind a keyboard. Because once upon a time, if you wanted to fucking get into it with someone, you generally had to do it face to face. Now, the thing about sitting behind a keyboard is it takes away the interpersonal sort of connection of the argument. So you could be arguing really with one person. You could be arguing with fucking two morons who are taking their time writing sentences, without the, or even just like sort of like this over like a sort of a call or something like that. Without that one, that's still one-to-one direct engagement that you and me are having right now. Without that, there's no basis for your argument. There's no place for the debate if there could be such a thing in the first place, because you're not having that sort of one-to-one.
Also, you can rake it back even further. Like, why should I allow you to have the debate?
Well, yeah.
Why should I allow you to talk to me about my life?
That's because everybody thinks they've got an opinion, which is lovely. That's sweet. It is. But it goes back to what you were saying earlier. If you're going to give someone the platform, they've got to know what they're talking about. This is the same problem. It comes around time and time again. It doesn't matter what you're talking about.
Minimum standards for entry, right?
It doesn't matter if you're talking about politics, LGBT, fucking war, whatever the case may be. If you don't have a vested interest or some sort of knowledge to be armed with going in,
some basis, some context, some experience, some study, anything. At the moment, we have a situation where if you had a debate on neurosurgery, what you would have is a neurosurgeon and then a studio full of ignorami.
Yeah,
come from all walks, and it's like in the name of balance, and it's like no, that
Trevor
one
Smith,
neurosurgeon
75 retired postman.
Right, that neurosurgeon is right. There's no debate.
Yeah.
There's no debate to be had. That neurosurgeon who's dedicated their life to that field is correct. You may not like it. You may have some problem with that. There may be some narcissistic thing in your mind that makes you feel inferior, the fact that you've got an expert on the matter. But that's tough, isn't it? You know, that's
I'm going to get dragged.
Tough.
I'm going to get dragged for saying this, but I think that's probably as noble and as wonderful as the concept is. I think that is probably the main overarching problem with freedom of speech, because people imply or infer that freedom of speech gives them the right to talk about anything they want, regardless of whether or not they know what they're fucking talking about. They think that gives them the platform to spout off.
Absolutely. And then by extension, not to be challenged as well. This is the thing I find about the free speech community here, certainly here online, is that they feel as though their free speech is being impinged when people bring them up on their bullshit. When people use their free speech to respond to them and say, no, that's garbage.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're censorship. Oh, it's like, no, we're just telling you that
freedom for everyone except you.
Except for you, yeah, absolutely.
No,
what we're telling you is that this is harmful, or this is nonsense, or this is bullshit, or you're talking nonsense. So but the way they defend themselves is by saying, "Oh, you're censoring me. Oh, this is against my freedom of speech." It's like, well,
the first fucking thing about it, and
absolutely.
And this sort of feeds back into what I was talking about earlier about like sort of the whole thing of school. So while they're fucking, making their knuckles raw, smashing my face in and that, I kind of think to myself, now's probably not the best time to say to them, your argument is based on bullshit and nothing at all, because I think that's only going to exacerbate the situation. So I'll just sit there and take the kicking. That all changed when I got to college and did performing arts, and I actually was around openly camp and fucking queer people. I was going to
say, another area where you were probably surrounded by queer people, let's be honest.
Yeah, performing the creative department, fucking, weirdly enough, there was more than a couple. And I didn't think anything of my circumstances at the time or what I could be. And the interesting thing is, when people talk about like sort of coming out, or sort of like when they some people do it online, some people might do it on Twitter. Hi, my name's blah blah blah, and I'm trans, and people recognise that as they're coming out, and they go, welcome, sort of blah blah blah. Weirdly enough, as much as I acknowledge my bisexuality, I didn't actually come out, so to speak.
No, it's interesting, isn't it?
Because I didn't. The only person I came out, because by the time I acknowledged, I probably am. I probably am bi. And when I acknowledged, actually, I think I am in theory. Haven't actually put that into practice. When me and Jen first got together back in 2006. And Jen is straight up heterosexual, interesting way to put it. And I said to her, okay, I thought I'd probably better let you know, not that it really fucking matters one way or the other, at least to me. I believe myself in theory to be bisexual. And Jen was a little bit taken aback, but she was like, okay, well, fine. And Jen's the only person I've had that conversation with. Weirdly enough, I had never had that conversation with Mum, with Den Mother. I've never come out to Mum Why? Because I know for 1 minute the last thing the woman is going to fucking do is demonize me. She's a fucking fag hag, that woman.
Yeah,
right?
I was going. I
mean,
know. I'm
you
well
you
aware.
are her fourth adopted son, as far
I
as I'm
am
aware.
well aware. By the way,
And-
Janice is great. Can I just?
Yeah, your mum, love
there
you,
has
love you
there have
lots.
been a few people who have been like the most supportive of like my writing, and she is like well up there. I'm telling you.
Yeah, mum was always, I mean, when Alex started the Camden Calling thing with like sort of DK, mum's always been very supportive of those who wish to pursue ideas through creativity and sort of things like that. She's always been a massive advocate for that.
But you know how Stephen King talks about you could have like an ideal reader in your head when you write a story. She became mine very quickly.
Yeah, because
quickly.
one thing mum will do. Don't forget, she was with my narcissistic fucking self-obsessed stepdad for years, who was the tortured writer sort of thing, and she'd work fucking God knows how many hours a day, and then she'd get home, put the dinner on, and then for a couple of hours before she sat down for half an hour before going to bed, well, she'd sit there and type his fucking manuscripts up on the word processor and do the editing.
Jesus, really?
Yeah. And she supported him all the way through his fucking tortured artist face cunt. Anyway, I never had that conversation with my mother. And I think the reason I never had that conversation with my mother is a couple of reasons. One, I just didn't really think it was important enough to bring up. Two, she's not a fucking stupid woman, and she'd have worked it out for herself at some stage and just thought to herself, well, do you know what? Good for him. You know, we'll probably never talk about it, we'll never mention it, because obviously he's really not even that bothered about it himself.
Yeah. No, I didn't either, funnily enough. I didn't have like a big coming out, as it were. I think I would have had to have come out if I was straight. You know what I mean? I think it would have been a real if I started dating women, I think my parents would have taken me aside and gone, "Are you all right? Is there something wrong here?" You know?
Do you know what? If you, I'm planning on going to the convention this year or something like that.
Oh, TFA,
if you walk into the main lobby with a young lady on your arm, could you please make sure I'm sitting down first beforehand?
That would be wrong, wouldn't it? You would worry, right?
I would.
You would worry.
No. I would support your life choices.
Yeah, but it would be a strange turn, wouldn't it?
I might say to you, you kept that one quiet.
What's going on here? And don't get me, you know what the funny thing is? Don't get me wrong. If I met a woman who like completely changed my life, who was like just the best thing that ever happened, then I'd have no compunction about that. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, well, that's what that is at that, that's fine, isn't it? But I don't think it's going to happen. Because I'm just not attracted to women in that way, generally,
Yeah. I mean,
for better or worse, I'm attracted to guys, and guys are difficult.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's wrong. Guys are really fucking easy in one way, but in other ways, very much not.
What, like sort of communicating your feelings and like
exactly.
Sort of, yeah.
Dealing with all that ego and neurosis.
I wonder if that doesn't relate back to some sort of toxic masculinity upbringing, and that we don't talk about our feelings and sort of things like that. I mean, thank God. Really, I mean, I had my stepdad who was self-obsessed, narcissistic, and like sort of all the best traits of humanity, and that. And he fucking apparently he absolutely hated me. But I can say that, I don't have to regard him as the person. If he despised me that much, then I don't really regard him as the person who brought me up. Mum brought me up, and being such an empathic person. I would have to be fucking Adolf Hitler for that to have not rubbed off in some way. Is it any wonder that my sister and mum all ended up in the same fucking, like the homeless sector, we all ended up in the same job eventually. Right,
in care, right? Yeah, so in social support. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because like the reason I never had to come out to my parents is because it was never a big deal.
Yeah.
it never occurred to me that it would have to be this big thing. It was just a case of, oh, mom, dad got a boyfriend now, and they're like, oh, right, cool. And
cool.
I will always remember, because my dad's first reaction was, bring him over. My dad is like really tammy, and he's like, bring him over, I'll show him my garden. It's like, oh, right, okay.
That's a trial by fire, clearly.
That's what that's the way it always is. But no, I mean, coming out is it is very important for some people, because it is like, it's such a moment of their self-affirmation. It's not necessarily for other people, it's for them, and it should be for them.
Yeah, because
it should be for them.
Also, absolutely.
It's important,
But I want to look at the darker aspect of that as well. For some people who fear, like, when they're coming out, they're worried about the reaction they're going to get. That's why Pride is so important.
Yes, that is why Pride is so important.
Because
it gives you. The thing is, despite what the right-wing media would have you proclaim, that we're apparently simultaneously deviant and small, but also in control of everything. It's really bizarre. We're both both one thing and not. We're both vermin and the tyrants.
Schrodinger's puff.
We have no spaces in culture, or rather, we have very limited spaces within culture in comparison to our straight cisgender siblings. We have narrative doesn't apply to us in the same way, and space doesn't apply to us in the same way. So spaces that we've made for ourselves, like Pride, are really important. They're important on a whole range of levels. They're important politically, because it's where we organize, it's where we come together. Emotionally and communally, because it's where we form bonds, it's where we meet face to face, and where we form bonds with one another.
It's like your adoptive family. It's like, if you come out of the place, people are automatically there for you. And
it's also where we express. I mean, there's always been this thing where, and it's happened a lot since the commercialization of Pride. It's become more of like a parade rather than a protest. There has always been this thing of like kink at Pride, where you get certain quarters who are sort of like tutting and like, oh, you shouldn't have kink at Pride. It's like, excuse me, kink has been there from the very beginning.
Yeah,
it's part of our expression.
Maybe don't take your fucking
exactly
to the kink section of the parade.
And also, it's always from a heteronormative sort of perspective, isn't it? It's like, if you don't like it, don't go. It's not your space; it's ours. It's ours.
I've never been to like I went to one Pride night out in a pub a couple of years ago, but I've never actually been to like a Pride street party or anything like that. I would like to do it at some point.
It's great fun, and also the significance of things like kink and sexual display and whatnot are exaggerated anyway. You will see nothing at Pride that you don't see in heteronormative culture, on TV, in adverts, in
music videos,
a million times over and a million times more explicit.
But at the same time, because it's the heteronormative, it's for some reason in their heads that's sanitized.
That's sanitized, exactly. Yeah,
but it's not.
It's normalized. That's the thing. It's normalized. So they don't even see it. They don't perceive it. But if you are outside that fishbowl, you can see it. You can perceive it. And you're like, well, it's a whorehouse. The whole place is a whorehouse, which, by the way, is fine. I've got no problem with that. I consider myself actively as a libertine. I believe in pleasure and art for their own sakes. I think they're their own arguments, Yeah. I have no problem with it. But
remind me, I must get you a Chinese puzzle box for your birthday next year.
Fine. I'm well up for it. I've said it many times. I'm not even joking. I'm not exaggerating. If I had a lament configuration, I would open it, because
damn right, yeah.
There's potential there. I mean, like, you look at the Cenobites and it's like, they love what they are.
Yeah.
They love what they are. They operate in the state of extremity and poetry that's actually quite beautiful.
I just thought of something. Going back to something. I've just thought of something. So the people who are the heteronormative people who are moaning about certain elements of a celebration festival that has fuck all to do with them.
Exactly. Right. The problem is the assumption of place, the assumption of dominion. This happens a lot. Heteronormative culture is such that those to whom it applies believe that it applies everywhere. They believe that they have a say in everything, and that I'm sorry, they don't. Not in Pride. Pride is ours.
You see, the thing is, I've now got this fucking image in my head of these fucking people purposely going to Pride events to be outraged. Now,
yeah.
there
is an
I'm hoping that's just my imagination. But I've got a feeling that's probably true.
I'm sad to say it, but there's also a certain purity policing that sometimes comes from within our own cultures. There is a certain more conservative portion of the queer community that always pipe up and say, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have kink at Pride, or maybe we shouldn't let the leather daddies come to Pride." And it's like, excuse me, they were there at the very beginning, and were it not, I mean, these people don't know their own history. They've either not read it or they've forgotten it.
No, it's only, as I said, those short selective memories.
Exactly. It's only because of those leather daddies. It's only because of those displays that they have the rights and freedoms that they do now. So no, I'm afraid not. They have not only every right to be there, they should be celebrated for being there. And if you don't like it, go. You know.
I just want to give a massive shout out, and well, actually more of a fuck you to those elements of the LGB community who, how can I put this?
Oh, who are transphobic?
Yes.
It's bonkers, isn't it? It's absolutely bonkers. What they don't ever understand, or rather they seem to just ignore in their own weird little bubble, is who our enemies, to the people they're cozying up to and trying to accommodate, by the way. Oh, please, masters, no, we're not the filthy evil ones. We're the good ones. We're like you. Fuck off. To our enemies, we're all filthy queers. It doesn't matter if we're trans, bi, ace, non-binary, gay, whatever. Doesn't matter. We are all the same. And even these ones these accommodationist traitors who are trying to cozy up to those who would happily exterminate them alongside the trans community and all the rest of us, be on the same trains. They're going to be in the same pits, you know?
Absolutely. Now, the reason I mentioned them in particular is because, as I said, I grew up 6 years old in a gay pub. 1986.
Yeah.
When, you know, the AIDS crisis was fucking really starting to kick off. When you had the adverts of the fucking falling black monoliths onto fucking gravel. Like, sort of queers know your limits or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
A lot of people my age don't remember those adverts. I vividly remember that advert.
Right. I don't think I do, because I'm a bit younger than you, aren't I? I was 1984.
Yeah. But I for some reason, though that advert sticks in my head, and I was only young, so it would have played on TV between, I think, 86 and 88 or 89 or whatever. I remember that advert vividly because it's doom mongering.
Yeah.
Sort of unsanctioned doom mongering with literally fuck all to back it up with, and the people, and they'll be of the older generation, gay people as well. A lot of them who share the transphobic views. A lot of them are of the older generation, and I think to myself, "Fuck you!"
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You had a lot more. You had this vitriol back in 1986, 1987, 1988, and we had Section 28 at school. That was aimed directly to fuck with you.
Yeah, and it's come back in. I mean, they smuggled it in under the auspices. They use that awful word, gender ideology.
I know, which means nothing.
What ideology? What are you talking about? Show me where it's written down. Show me what, like, church or institution is prescribing this ideology.
Give them time.
Remember 10 years ago when there was this whole huge debate about gay marriage in the US, and you had our opponents using the term the gay agenda, and I was like, well, where is this agenda? Where's it written? Where's it written down? Where's this movement? Where are the laws of it? Where are the tenets? Where I feel left out. Am I not gay enough? Because I haven't had my leaflet through the door that tells me what to do. You know,
I think the gay agenda does sound like the thing is, on a slight technicality, the gay agenda could exist because it sounds like it involves a lot of planning, a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah.
You know, all the fucking pictures have got to be straight on the fucking walls. But if it's anything beyond that, and some really nice interior design, if it's anything beyond that, then it's bullshit. It doesn't exist. There's nothing tangible. There's nothing to back that sentence up with.
The reason they come up with these bogeymen is because that's how they operate. They do have an agenda and they do have ideology. Yeah. And they do have institutions that prescribe these ideologies. We don't, not really. The only thing gay and trans and queer people want is to be left alone.
Well,
I think to be spat on, you know, not to be, you know.
I think you're. I mean, you know, when you say it out loud, it is a bit of a tall order. To be fair,
isn't it just? I mean, you know,
just wait until they introduce the bullet trains in this country. You lot will be rounded up a lot quicker.
Best, that's not going to happen. No,
they'll all be running late.
That's not going to happen. Not in this country.
It annoys me.
That's the one saving grace, isn't it? If they do get to the level where there are actually trains coming for us, they're never going to fucking turn up in this country, are they? So
no.
They'll all be privatised, so they'll all be breaking down on the way, won't they?
Yeah, you have to. We'll get Ubers to your fucking executions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It annoys me.
But people can't see that it's just the same thing now. It's the same language that's being applied. It's the same distorting bullshit. It's the same framework.
And that's why it makes me angry, because if I can remember these hideous, vulgar displays of hatred from nearly 38 years ago.
Why can't you? Why can't everyone else? Yeah, why can't you remember? Why are your memories so short? And the reason, the truth is, the really ugly truth is, their memories are not that short. They do remember. They just don't care. They've gotten themselves to a position of comfort and where they feel as though they're okay. And suddenly,
because you can legally get married, that don't mean fuck all.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. This is the other thing, right? This is another argument that I often have. Things like gay marriage, obviously, we should all be allowed to get married, and not just in same-sex marriages either. Any dynamic that does not involve abuse or coercion, everybody should be allowed to get married. So, like, if it's multiple people involved, yeah, fine. Why not? Fucking why not?
So, you know, poly marriage or something like that.
Absolutely. Why the fuck not? There is no good argument against it. The basis should be: is there any coercion or abuse happening? If not, fine, go for it. Who cares, right?
Yeah, no, I never thought about that. That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Who cares, right? I've lost my train of thought now that we've gone on to something else.
Well, it was bound to happen sooner or later. We were 34 minutes in, and we finally fucking.
We were talking about gay marriage, which is obviously something that should exist. But one of the problems with the existence of gay marriage is that it has, to a certain degree, taken away our teeth. It's made us. What it's done is domesticated us. So you do have this problem within gay culture where you get gay people who are in marriages who are trying to emulate straight marriages, trying to emulate the way straight people live.
So essentially, the gay scene has become middle class.
Yes, exactly that. Now, don't get me wrong. If that's the way you want to live, fine. It's not for me to tell you not to. But at the same time, there is a degree of insincerity in it because we're often not the same. You know, that's the whole point, you know? It's not that we are the same. It's just that we should be given rights on our own individual basis, you know?
I mean, if everything was the same, then what's the template there? There's nothing to strive for. There's nothing to. Part
of the byproduct of that,
at best.
You do get this dynamic of accommodationism. So you get like certain respectable middle class married queers who are sort of like, oh, look at us, we're not like those filthy grinder queers who go to the clubs and whatnot. We're like you. We're like
We used to be
people and
before we got married.
Exactly that. And not only that, but this is a performance. This is a pantomime. I guarantee you, the vast majority of them are still on Grindr and whatnot and have their hookup.
Oh, well, of course.
And it's
open marriages or what? Yeah, I get it.
Don't get me wrong. Fine. It's not an issue. It's not a problem. But there is a double-edged sword going on there. There is a double-edged sword because it rather than sort of showing to straight people and bringing straight people into our world, into our community, it's almost like we're sacrificing parts of ourselves to be more like them. And it's like, that's not really the point. Not really the point.
The most they're going to get at that is like sort of beige, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Or when they hit a certain age, then suddenly they start wearing fucking grey slacks and fucking beige cardigans. It's yeah.
Yeah,
if that's what the gay community is ultimately been like sort of working towards, then
that is not it really isn't the ultimate goal, or rather it shouldn't be. It's just a stepping stone, it's just one of the rights we always should have had.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why having that sort of I'm going to use the word having that quizzling approach to the whole thing. I find it absolutely sickening, especially when you've got like sort of little organisations, the LGB Alliance, who are possibly the most fucking spiteful fascist thing I've seen outside of Britain first, and then LGB without the T can fuck off as well.
Just for clarification, guys, the LGB Alliance is a group here in the UK that masquerades as though it's a queer rights organisation, as though it's a gay rights organisation. It's not. What it is a funded primarily by right-wing American think tanks organisation, primarily, and they were forced to reveal this in court because they went for charitable status. Primarily,
oh, really?
Yeah, primarily composed of elderly straight people that pretends to be. It pretends to talk for gay rights in this culture, but it doesn't. What it actually is an anti-trans hate group that is designed to turn queer people against one another. That's its entire agenda. It pretends that there's some basis in transphobia there's a queer argument, there's a gay argument for being transphobic. That's what they try to argue, and it's bullshit. I mean, it is. When you look at where their money comes from, when you look at the people they cozy up to, and when you look at when you look at their Twitter page, for God's sake, they often come after things like teaching about gay people in schools, for example. And so, oh yeah, that's very massively speaking up for gay people, isn't it? I mean, fucking Jesus.
I'm still.
Oh, by the way, Jay, they do dislike bi people as well now. I like to know that.
So the LG Alliance,
yeah.
Are they?
Their entire agenda, their entire impetus, their financial imperative, when you look at where the money's coming from, is to separate our community.
Yeah. So eventually they're going to be the L. So what happens when they run out of letters then?
Well, then they think they've won, don't they? Then they think they've dispersed us.
Well, because they know that called the Alliance. That sounds like some sort of fucking fascist sci-fi fucking thing.
But this is it. Maybe then the mask will come off and they won't even pretend anymore, because they won't have to at that point.
Well, in this day and age, I mean, you wonder you'd have to pretend at all because a lot of the bigotry, everything. It's not like it was 30 years ago where like sort of all the dodgy shit used to happen behind closed doors with a little bit of mustache twirling and that. These days, it's very much fuck you in your face.
Yeah.
With no apologies.
Because they know we really can't do a great deal about it. It's sort of like, no, we don't even bother. All it takes is 2 minutes of research on the internet to find out who the LGB Alliance are. And they've got nothing to do with the L, they've got nothing to do with the G, and they've got nothing to do with the B. All they have to do with that is that they want to separate us all. And they're starting with trans people because they are scapegoats de jure, right? Because they are currently the scapegoat of favor. So they're the easiest one to separate from the rest.
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on the organisation primarily being made up of getting on for elderly fucking straight people. That's fucking brilliant.
70% straight people.
That is like the sort of thing Armando Iannucci would have written. That's fucking amazing.
It's amazing. And also, I mean, by the way, that's still far too many gay people in it. It's like, you people, there's something wrong with you. You are serf-minded little slaves is what you are. And you love your straight masters. You love that boot on your throat, don't you? You love it. That's what that is. It's accommodation. It's nonsense.
And now we're back to King Pride again.
Not us. We're the good ones, you know. We're the good gays. We're not like these filthy queers over here. Fuck off. You cowardly little traitors.
Well, as I said, for someone who vividly remembers, the anti-gay rhetoric, AIDS, the gay disease, that sort of thing, which must have come as a shock to a lot of fucking people when straight people started getting it. Have you been fucking the gays?
That's the point at which this country started to take notice, because up until then there was
no one gave a fuck.
No one gave a fuck. People don't understand. Even people in like gay communities really don't understand how bad it was back then. I was really fortunate. I was a kid. It didn't affect me. It didn't touch me at all.
No, you were pretty much on the outside of that.
Right, I was on the outside of that. But by
then again, technically, so was I. So was I. Yeah. I mean, I would have been even less so if I hadn't have fucking grown up in a gay pub. It was only 2 years, but it was a very fucking eye-opening 2 years.
It desolated entire communities. It's like, I've spoken to older gay guys who were around at the time and who say, it was like we were going to 2 or 3 funerals a day. You had to decide who was like your better friend because the funeral would be going on at the same time, whose funeral you wanted to attend. It was a daily exercise, pre-mobile phones, by the way. So you'd get out your phone book and just cross names off. That was a daily exercise.
And people might think that this is exaggeration. This isn't. And the whole thing was not helped by the likes of the fucking Sun and that demonizing fucking TV advert and the likes of that fucking conservative cunt Teddy Taylor.
The ignorance that was spread in the right-wing press about AIDS and HIV massively contributed to its spread.
So many deaths.
To its continuance, because outlets like The Spectator, like The Sun, like The Mail, happily put it out there that, straight people can't catch it. Straight people are safe. No.
Yeah.
No. Sorry. So a lot of straight people died as a result of that. Yeah. The disease went on for many years longer than it should have because of that. And disproportionately, the amount of gay men who died was unbelievable.
Well, you can't help feeling that it sounds like they did it on purpose, really. I mean, not that I've got any proof of that, but it does sound like it was orchestrated to lean that way. It's not even that. For me, it's not even that like conspiratorial. It's just that homophobia was so entrenched in culture that when this came along, it was just like, well, who cares, right? You can see microcosms of it in the 1980s and 1970s. You had Dennis Nilsson, right? Dennis Nilsson, the serial killer. Dennis Nilsson. Yeah.
Operated and killed in the gay communities, right? And he always targeted the transient young gay men who had been left behind by their parents, abandoned by their families, and who nobody gave a shit about. Now, he should have been caught almost immediately because he wasn't particularly clever. He already had a police record. He had a police record for violence and for kidnapping and for all sorts of things. But he was allowed to get away with it for years and years and years because who was going missing? Queer runaways. Who gave a shit?
Now, if anybody hasn't read it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend a book called Exquisite Corpse.
Yes. Billy Martin, a.k.a. Poppy Z. Bright.
Now, I will I have a trigger warning for people. It is, in some areas, highly, highly graphic in what it depicts.
In most areas.
It's visceral. It's disturbing, it's gut-wrenching, and weirdly erotic somehow. I can't quite marry it up. But it basically it's a what if scenario. What if Dennis Nielsen from the UK had ever stumbled across someone the likes of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah, exactly. Exactly that. So
French Quarter in New Orleans.
Andrew Compton, the character in Exquisite Corpse, who's the British serial killer, is based on Dennis Nilsson.
Yeah.
And Jay Byrne, I think his name is.
I think so. It's Dahmer.
It's Dahmer, effectively. And the whole premise is, what if those two characters somehow met and recognized what one another were, so serial killers effectively, and embarked on this weird torrid affair. That's what it is, and it's hot and it's deviant and it's really very, I mean, it's a powerfully queer book. It's written by a trans man, for one thing, by Billy Martin.
It's one of my all-time. I think you even fucking told me to read it, actually.
I think I introduced you to it, didn't I?
It's one of the best things I've ever fucking read.
Me too.
Disturbing as fuck.
But it's also about that era, isn't it? Because it's set in the 1980s, right? It's in that era. I think Andrew Compton is actually a victim of the AIDS epidemic. He actually has AIDS, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I do believe.
Spoilers for those who haven't read it.
Yeah, it's about that experience. It's about being abandoned. It's about being abandoned by culture. There is even a sequence in it which is taken directly,
from
the experience of one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims.
Yeah.
One of Jeffrey Dahmer's young victims, despite being drugged, despite being physically just mutilated, got away from him. He got away from it. And he was stumbling down the street, wounded, bleeding, trying to get help. And he stumbled across a pair of cops. And somehow Dahmer managed to convince these cops that this kid was underage as well, by the way. He was 14. That this kid was his lover and he was just drunk and he'd gotten away. And the cops gave him back to the serial killer.
Yeah,
and do you know what happened to those cops? They were commended and they were promoted and they operated in the highest echelons of the police force for years.
Jesus, I had no idea.
But that sequence is recreated.
That's it. Yeah,
it's in Exquisite Court, and it's one of the worst sequences in the book. Worst in the sense that it's so desolate. It makes me so angry.
The book is grim as fuck. There's no happy ending for anyone, for any character. The main, do you call them protagonist, antagonist, two main characters? There's no happy ending for either of them. It's nihilistic, it's bleak, it's grim, but it's absolutely compelling.
Absolutely, and it is one of the most sincere explorations of an aspect of the gay experience, of the queer experience that I've ever come across, which is this sense of abandonment, this sense of not being part of culture, of being left outside somehow. That's what it's about ultimately, and it's beautiful in that regard. It is utterly beautiful. For me, it's one of the read once a year, every year book, but only once a year. I couldn't handle it any more than that.
And you're talking about sort of the feeling of abandonment, which so many people must face due to intolerant attitudes within their own family units and things like that.
It's an odd thing because you don't. I mean, that is absolutely part of it, but it's not even entirely that, because there is, even in the most accepting of families, there is homophobia inherent, and you can't really escape it. It's part and parcel. Because the dynamic of families, by its very nature, is heteronormative, right?
Yeah.
It's heteronormative by its very nature. What you often find, it's true in my family, and my parents are really good. They're really, they're really very, very accepting and don't really care about that much. But the truth is they'll always be closer to my straight sibling because their experiences chime more. The straight sibling does what the child is supposed to do. They provide the grandchild. They have more connection to them, and that is sadly always going to be the case because of the nature of the way these things are set up. It's history, it's tradition. Sadly, it's the evils of tradition.
For those who don't even have that, it's important to remember that that's where again Pride is an outreach and it's an outlet as well.
And beyond Pride as well. I mean, like there is this thing where queer people do this all the time. Your mum is a great vector of this, actually, because she sort of operates at the heart of it. We make our own families. It's really strange. We do, all of us. Even those of us, like I said, who have loving families, like mine is, we make our own families because the truth is, very often, they don't really understand our experience in the same way we don't necessarily understand theirs. So there's not as much connection. There's not as much overlap there. So we necessarily make our own families. I'm surrounded now by this network of queer people, because that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Something I wanted to mention earlier is the fact that how old was I? I think I was 23. It was after I'd moved back from India. And I needed a job. I needed somewhere to live in that. But I ended up taking a job in that pub when I was 23.
Oh, in the pub, yeah. Was it still a gay bar at that point?
It's still a gay pub, yeah. At that time, I wasn't really acknowledging the sort of the bi element to myself. So I would have said that I was the only straight member of staff behind the bar. Friday and Saturday nights in that place were a fucking riot because all anybody wants to do is dance, have a drink, and have a laugh. Now, being the only straight member of staff behind the bar, apparently I was some sort of challenge because I got the most drinks bought for me out of anyone. So when you tallied up the free drinks for the staff at the end of the night, after we stayed for an extra hour and a half, I actually ended up having to share my drinks out with people because my list was about fucking 3 times as long as everyone else's.
I can believe that. I mean,
if you can imagine back then when I was like sort of, a lot thinner, a lot younger, no grey in my beard or my hair. I'd say I cut a dashing figure for about 25 minutes. So yeah, they'd say, "Okay, buy your drink."
Yeah, I can believe that.
And being the absolute fucking slimy weasel that I am, I'd go, "Yes, thank you, dear."
Of course you would. Of course, take full advantage.
And the best part of it was, years and years and years later, I'm behind the bar, and there was a guy who used to drink in there, named Gary. I was only little. I was only 6. But he was always like tall, really athletic, really well built. I think he was a builder. Weird enough. And I was working behind the bar one night. It was like sort of a little bit quiet. And this guy just wouldn't leave me alone. Oh, come on! You got to give me your number, dear. Come on, you got to do blah blah blah. And I said, "Look, I'm really sorry, sweetheart." I said, "But I've got stuff that I need to do." Blah. And then this guy turned up out of nowhere. This fucking powerhouse of a fucking guy. And he goes, "Leave my niece alone." Fucking gets rid of this guy. He went, Are you my niece, Jill? I went, "Are you my uncle Gary? My auntie Gary?" Brilliant, fucking brilliant. And it was like sort of nearly 20 years down the line. And it was like the guy's still fucking drinking. It's still his place, and it had that sense of familiarity to it.
Brilliance, absolute brilliance. My God.
So crossing like sort of over a generation or so, and there's still that sort of familiarity. So that was nice.
That's very cool. That is very cool. I mean, it's one of the things that I fear is going away. The physical spaces where we used to operate, and it's largely due just to the nature of our culture. It's not anything more insidious than the natural evils of capitalism. So, even within my lifetime, I went back to Derby recently, just to have a look around where I went to uni, right? And everything's gone. Everything's gone. The queer area of Derby, like Curzon Street, where there was the bars and the clubs, it's gone. It's all closed down.
When we lived in Clapham, there used to be a popular little gay bar there called the Casbah.
Yeah.
And on that road, there was another one called on the other corner of that road. So you had the road going down either side, sat a little gay bar. There's another little gay bar there. I can't remember the name of it. And down that little street off Clapham High Street's main road, down that little street would be where you had like the Pride celebration each year.
Yeah.
And the Casbah was a really popular little place. And that fucking that shut down. They said that it was shutting down to refurbish, and then it just never reopened again.
It's happening a lot. It's happening a lot. And I wonder, I really fear because like that experience for me as a young gay guy, being physically amongst other gay people was really important.
Yeah.
It was really important. I fear that we will become increasingly atomized and engaging more in forums like this, electronic forums and digital forums, which, okay, they're important. In this day and age, they're really important. You need to have that space. And particularly for people who are isolated, who don't have the means of getting to these venues, it's really important.
Yeah.
But the physical venues there are places of organisation.
GAY in London closed down, didn't it?
I know.
The Astoria closed down.
I know.
And the weird thing is, and I will die on this fucking hill. If given the absolute choice, because I very rarely go to the pub anymore because it's an effort and not paying those fucking prices. But if I absolutely had to pick somewhere we were going to go for a night out, where we're going to go, my first choice is either going to be the gay club or the gay pub or something like that, because they are the environments that I feel the safest in. Never fucking once have I seen a pint glass fly through the fucking air, someone get the living shit kicked out of them on the dance floor because they were cozying up someone they fucking shouldn't have. There's no egos. Well, not really. There's no egos. There's no alpha male bullshit fucking bravado who can punch and piss the fastest. There's none of that. It's just people out. They want to have a drink. They want to have a dance. They want to have a good time.
It's just a completely different.
It's a totally different culture. It's a totally different vibe.
Different culture.
And I've been into some fucking, I call it straight venues, but that's the easiest way to put it. I've been into some straight venues where as soon as I've walked through the door, my hackles have gone up, and I'm like, I'm not. No.
Don't want to be in here, right? Don't want to be in here.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? And the fact that those venues are sort of going away, they're being eroded, is a real worry. It's a real worry. One of the places, funnily enough, that seems to have escaped that for now is just up the road. That's Birmingham. Birmingham has a massive, it's a whole queer quarter and really huge outlets and venues and whatnot. And Pride Parade here. Pride is massive in Birmingham. It's absolutely massive. It basically takes over the city just for a brief time.
And of course, you've still got Brighton, I guess.
And Brighton, and obviously parts of London. But what's happening is a sort of gentrification.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say. That there seems to all the nice pubs that you would go to now suddenly all had the same fucking furniture and the same assistants on pulled pork in your burger, and like basically absolutely. And this is something they stole from Wetherspoons, to be fair, just with a little bit more upmarket fucking furniture. Absolutely no atmosphere whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's a shame because like the working class and underclass queer people are being priced out of these venues.
Yeah.
The people who are frankly more interesting than the middle class people who are like the creatives on the dole or whatnot, the struggling artists and whatever, are being priced out of these venues, and that's a real shame. That's a real shame. And the venues themselves, largely because they can't sustain a clientele, are closing down.
Actually, while we're on the subject of creatives, for those who have a real bee in their bonnet about people who live, shall we say, an alternative lifestyle, give back your DVD collections, your music collections, your fucking your classic fine statues and art, your literature, your fucking plays. Stop watching Netflix. Your TV programs, send it all back, because there's a good chance that a queer person may have had at least some measure of involvement in it.
It's almost certain that a queer person was involved, somewhere.
Yeah. Actually, looking at my own,
in fact, quite a few probably.
Looking back at my own experiences, particularly in college, when I say I didn't really acknowledge my bisexuality, I think actually. So there's some things, looking back on it objectively now, some things certainly did add up. For example, we did in our course, we did the Rocky Horror Picture Show thing, and I played Riff Raff because
Right,
I had the long hair, and I knew the film inside out 'cause it was one of my favourite films when I was little. That also says a lot.
Well, that's a big indicator for one.
Yeah. And it got to performance day. We were about an hour and a half before the fucking curtain went up, and the person who'd been cast to play Frank was a no-show.
Oh no!
For our college group, and everyone's like sort of panicking. It's like sort of blah blah blah. So I went, I am familiar with this, source material inside out. I said, just give me the fucking stockings and that.
Yeah,
but because I had no idea how to fucking put any of this shit on, a couple of the girls in my class had to help me fucking put this shit on, which was really kind of embarrassing because I'm sort of standing there pretty much semi-nude in women's underwear in front of two relatively attractive girls. And I'm like, oh, I don't fucking need this. I really don't need this. But yeah, I played Frank in full fucking get up at college. And I think to myself, do you know what? The signs were there.
That's a pretty big indicator, really. And Frank is perfect, really, because he's not bi, he's like omni, isn't it? Yeah. He's like animal, vegetable, or mineral, right?
Yeah. And it's like, considering no one else in our class like offered like to sort of help out or step in a line, I was the first one to spend me. Like, okay, whatever.
No, I love that character. So cool. So cool. I mean, Tim Curry is just the best.
He nails it. And
I love the voice. You know where the voice comes from?
The voice?
Yeah. Did you ever hear about how he came up with the voice for Frank?
No.
It's his mother's telephone voice. So you know how people, you know how some people get a little bit posher when they're on the phone. Oh, hello. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, mum used to do that in the 90s, but as she's got progressively older and like sort of degenerated further, she'll pick up the phone and go, hello.
Oh, it's so funny. And if you listen to Frank, that's kind of how he does talk. It's this really overly enunciated, like Queen's English. You must be awfully proud of him, Janet. You know, it's proud. It's not proud. It's proud. It's fantastic.
He carries the Charles Atlas seal of approval.
Carries the Charles Atlas seal of approval. I love that. I didn't make him for you.
Yeah, and there's that little meme that goes around like every 6 to 8 months. You can tell somebody's personality or whatever based on what film they know Tim Curry from. Mine is Rocky Horror.
It's got to be Rocky Horror, yeah. Rocky Horror. I mean, loads of others as well, but yeah, it's Rocky Horror. It's definitely Rocky Horror because it's just. Well, it's what it is, isn't it? It's a phenomenon.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, on that college show,
you enjoyed that. So that is one we've got to talk about then.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
My God!
We'll make time for that.
I tell you what, as a follow-up to this video, because we've gone on for like 2 hours.
Shit.
Shall we do Rocky Horror for Pride? Shall we do like an interview, a review of Rocky Horror for Pride?
Absolutely.
Fucking brilliant. I'm in. I'm so in. I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I've got I'm picking Mum up from the station on Friday. She's going back Sunday, and then I've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. I'm free next Wednesday if you're vaguely around.
I think I might be. I'll have a look. I think I might. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we'll pick up some of these dangling threads at some point, and we've left a few dangling. There's a lot more to say here.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't condense it all into like sort of 2 hours, 3 minutes.
It's too big, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've had occasion to say that more than once, but hey,
guaranteed to make your eyes water.
Yeah. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to pimp out?
I've still got. For some reason, I'm still doing Transformers reviews on my channel. I put a message up, weirdly enough, on the Transformers YouTube community page saying, TFN attendees, would you like the opportunity to be verbally insulted face to face? If so, come and find me in the bar where I will be obnoxiously inebriated for a period of 48 hours. Reserve your seat today. Because that's what I do. That's what I do when
That
I go
is-
to the convention. I get inebriated very quickly, spend the next 36 to 48 hours in that state, and I'm just obnoxious to fucking be around for 2 days. I know.
It's fun.
I know exactly what I am. So yeah, I'm still doing my Transformers reviews. We've still got 7 Days to Die going on the channel, and also the sub-series Darkness Falls. What else? What else have I got? I'm still trying to do that fucking parody Star Trek Online series. And coming up, starting next Saturday, this is really important for me actually. It will be 10 years since Wolfkang played AA 2014.
Oh no! Is that 10 years ago?
Yes.
It is, isn't it? Of course it is. Wow.
Yes. So, as a celebration of a decade of nobody buying the album, I have decided to release it week by week on a Saturday, each track from the album over a period of 14 weeks.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
Once that's done, I'm going to give it about a week off, and then I've got another 14 weeks of demos of songs that were almost finished, just not quite, of things that never got released. So, yeah.
Cool.
So look out for all that and more. I dare say there's other stuff going on which I can't fucking think of it, to be quite honest. I've got 52 videos scheduled for release between now and the 28th of December.
Okay, so guys, if links below, and to the Wolfkang1 channel where a lot of this is going on. Okay, down below,
and on Twitter and Blue Sky and fucking where I don't know places.
All those spaces. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. As for me, guys, you'll find me knocking about here on Exaggerated Elegy. Several Let's Plays going on at the moment. Just started the remake of System Shock, which is ace. Absolutely brilliant. If you go over to Arrow Films, you will find the new Hellraiser Blu-ray and UHD set, The Quartet of Torment. And myself and my colleague Kit Power, we feature on the Hellbound disc. We are on the featurette Hell is What They Wanted. If you want links, if you'd like to read some of my fiction, you'll find links to it all over on strangeplaygrounds.com. Or if you go over to the Evil Empire of Amazon and type in George Daniel Lee, you'll find my Amazon author page, which has all of my short story collections, all of the anthologies I've been part of. Over on the gingernutsofhorror.com, which is one of the biggest horror websites on the internet, I'm currently doing the My Life in Horror project, which I inherited from Kit Power, which is a series of articles and essays about horror media that's affected me in some very powerful way. And I'm also on Blue Sky. I am still hanging about Twitter, but you probably won't get much of a response over there from me because it's primarily for marketing these days. And with all that said, Gerard, thank you, man.
Yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, it's been good fun. And we'll be back very, very soon. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Take care.